Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari.
Jaya Gopi
Jana
Vallabha Trivaradhari.
Yashodanandana Vraja Jana
Shodhanandana Braja Janaranjana.
Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana.
Yashodhanandana Braja Janaranjana.
Jamuna Tira Vanajari.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare.
Hare
Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Shashi. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. How do we start? Should we start with the Mangla Charan and then read the and then hand over to you, or?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So we can, Shashwin, are you able to do the Mangla Charan today?
Yes, yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Srapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mayam Taranti Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Yutapatakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Sya Shri Rupam Sakrajadam Sahagana Lalita Lagunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Satvairam Swavadudam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Shya He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanjana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanushrute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyasya Kirpa Sindhubhayeva cha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Shashwat, for the wonderful Mangalacharan recital. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances from everybody, on behalf of everybody in this group as well. We welcome you, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, we are reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. We are on Canto 1, Chapter 13. And the text for today, Prabhuji, is 5, 6, 7, because 5 and 6 don't have a purport. So we'll be grateful if we can discuss the 3. So I hand over to you, Prabhuji. Thank you for your association. I haven't seen you since a long time, so I'm really thrilled to see you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mataji. I'll just need to share my screen. If you give me the option to do that.
Prabhuji, kindly go ahead.
Thank you. Then 1 second. Yeah, okay. So, so as Mataji said, today we'll be looking at Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 13, text 5 to 7. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. Text 5. Pratyujagmu praharshena pranam tanva ivagatam abhisangamya vidivat parishvanga vivadanam. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The translation is, with great delight, they all approached him as if life had returned to their bodies. They exchanged obeisances and welcomed each other with embraces. So before we go into the purport, just to remind us what's happening here. So as we know, Vidura has returned after his long absence. As we know, he was forced to leave some time back by Duryodhana, by the Kauravas, and he went on pilgrimage and he went to many places. He heard lots of spiritual knowledge, and now he's finally returned. So all his family members, they're very much pleased that he's returned. So this is what's happening here. They're so happy that it says, as if life had returned to their bodies, just showing how dear Vidura actually is to them. And then Prabhupada says that in the absence of consciousness, the limbs of the body remain inactive. But when consciousness returns, the limbs and senses become active, and existence itself becomes delightful. Vidura was so dear to the members of the Kaurava family that his long absence from the palace was comparable to inactivity. All of them were feeling acute separation from Vidura, and therefore his return to the palace was joyful for all. Okay, so we can see here Prabhupada's explaining this analogy of life returning to the body. So we know that there's only life in the body when the soul is in there. We know that, when the spirit soul is in the body, then the soul actually has life. And how do we know the soul is there? As we know, the symptom of the soul being present in the body is consciousness. So from consciousness, we can understand that there is some living force, the spirit soul within the body, which is keeping it alive. So you can see how very important the soul is to the body. If there's no soul, there's no body base, there's no life in the body whatsoever. So this is showing how strongly they felt the absence. That is, it's basically saying that they felt as if they were dead without Vidura. They felt as if they had no life without Vidura. They were just kind of just existing there in the palace, but not actually living. And now Vidura has returned, and it says they're feeling acute separation, so very strong, intense separation. And now that that separation has ended, then after separation, there's union. And everyone, it says that is joyful for all. So that is, so one thing, so that's why, because it's kind of talking about separation, and the other verses will talk about separation. So that's why I kind of gave this kind of theme for today's discussion as separation from devotees, because ultimately, yes, they're feeling separation from Vidura, their family member, but it is also because Vidura is a pure devotee, so it's also separation from a devotee. Ultimately, that's what these people are experiencing, feeling separation from a pure devotee like Vidura. And then, yeah, so I haven't got, so I've only got a few slides, which I've not got so much prepared, actually prepared for the next verse, text 8. So then I had to change it in the last few hours. But anyway, I've got some, after the slides, I've got some other things that we can speak about relating to this topic. Just here, if we go on to the next verse, so this one doesn't have a purport. Mumuchu prema bashpogam virahot kantyakataraha rajatam arhayam chakre kritasana parigraham. Okay, so we've already heard that how they're delighted that he's returned, is like life has returned, and now due to anxieties and long separation, they all cried out of affection. So they're all crying. You can imagine the scene, the whole palace is full of people crying joyful tears, not sad tears. So it's a very, very emotional scene going on here. And then after that, it says that King Yudhishthira then arranged to offer sitting accommodations and a so they've just obviously made arrangements. And then if we go to text 7, my internet connection, it says it's unstable. So let me know if I get cut off or anything. Can you still hear me now? Can someone?
Yes, Prabhuji, we can hear you, but we couldn't hear you, the last 2 sentences that you said.
Oh, shall I repeat?
Yes, Prabhuji, if you don't.
Okay. So yeah, the last thing I was just basically, reading text 6 and just explaining that, they've gone through the greetings, they've greeted each other, and now the king is making arrangements for his uncle to stay with them. That is their duty when their senior has come, to offer a very nice reception, make sure they're welcomed with very nice arrangements. And as we know, Yudhishthira Maharaj is very much pakka, very much focused on his duty. So he'll be very, sure to make sure he makes everything perfect for Vidura's reception. So text 7, Dam bhuktavantam vishrantam asinam sukhamasane prashraya vanato raja prahate sham cha shrinvatam. The translation of this one. After Vidura ate sumptuously and took sufficient rest, he was comfortably seated. Then the king began to speak to him. and all who were present there listened. So this is kind of, before we go into the purport, this is, you kind of see this similar scenario, if you like, happening so many times in the Srimad Bhagavatam, that some great personality, usually like some sage or some spiritual master, some guru, or someone has come to another place, and then those who are there offer them, nice reception. They give them something to eat, let them rest for a while, and then after they've rested and all of that, then give them a comfortable seat, make sure they have water, and then usually there's some kind of conversation. Usually the host will then inquire from the saintly personality and listen to them. Because this is a kind of similar situation happening here. So I'll split the purport into two. Would anyone like to volunteer to read the first half of the purport, please?
I can try, Prabhuji.
Oh, thank you, ma'am.
King Srimad Bhagavatam 1.13.7 purport. King Yudhishthira was expert in reception also, even in the case of his family members. Vidura was well received by all the family members by exchange of embraces and obeisances. After that, bathing and arrangements for a sumptuous dinner was made, and then he was given sufficient rest. After finishing his rest, he was offered a comfortable place to sit, and then the king began to talk about all happenings, both family and otherwise. That is a proper way to receive a beloved friend or even an enemy. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Jai. Thank you, Mataji. So as I said, it's explaining basically showing the procedure, what's the proper way to receive someone when they come into your home. So this is basically etiquette, if you like. This is giving us an example of etiquette when we receive someone. So the few points here. As I said, King Yudhishthira is very focused on duty, dharma, etiquette, things like that. So as it says here, he's very much expert in that. And so they're embracing each other, offering obeisances. So then this conversation is happening, and it's saying this is the proper way to receive a beloved friend or even an enemy. So very, very interesting point there, that we can understand that if your friend, your beloved friend, as it says here, if your friend comes to your place, and obviously it makes sense, we can understand why you would want to go through all that trouble to give such a reception, but here it's saying even an enemy. So we might think, why is that? Why do we also have to go to so much trouble for an enemy? Surely they wouldn't do that for us. So then Prabhupada will explain this. Do we have another devotee who would like to read the second half, please?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I can read.
Sure. Yes, please. Thank you.
According to Indian moral codes, even an enemy received at home should be so well received that he will not feel any fearful situation. An enemy is always afraid of his enemy, but this should not be so when he is received at home by his enemy. This means that a person, when received at home, should be treated as a relative. So what to speak of a family member like Vidura, who was a well-wisher for all the members of the family. Thus, Yudhishthira Maharaja began to speak in the presence of all the other members. Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Okay, so here's Prabhupada is explaining this. Why is it the same reception for friend or enemy? So it's Prabhupada saying it's according to Indian moral codes, that obviously at wartime on the battlefield it's a different situation, and then when they're outside of the specified time for the fighting, then like is explained here, there should be no fearful situation. Just like we hear about even the battle of Kurukshetra, that during the fighting, specific time for fighting, they're fighting the enemies, but then outside that time they're like friends or family members, which obviously they are family members, two parts of the same family, but it's almost as if there's no, during the peaceful times, it's almost as if there's no battle happening at all. So the same thing is being explained here. So it's saying here, Prabhupada saying that person is basically, they should be treated as a relative. So even if they're not, literally, biologically a family member, but still we should give them that same treatment that we would give, our real relatives. So I've highlighted this point about he was a well-wisher for all members of the family. But just before that, I was just thinking on this point of treating them like family. This is obviously we're talking about from a material point of view, but from a spiritual point of view, we can also talk about ultimately we're all one family because we're all Krishna's children. Ultimately, on the spiritual platform, from a spiritual perspective, if we look at it, we are all the same family. So even our enemies, they are ultimately like our family members, but they've just forgotten, or we've all just forgotten. That's why we're here in the material world. But when we remember this, when we become devotees, then remember, oh, we are all actually, one big family, as they say. And even Prabhupada says this sometimes in his classes, that we are devotees, we're trying to become part of Krishna's family. We have our family in our material lives, and we have to care for our family and deal with our family and whatever we need to do. But also Prabhupada is saying, ultimately our goal is to become part of Krishna, or return to Krishna's family, Krishna's eternal family. So we can look at it like that as well. And that's also a good way to look at it for preaching as well, for book distribution or whatever it might be. Just sharing Krishna consciousness with others, like members of the public or whoever. Then we can also, this helps to have that compassionate outlook, that we are we're not trying to give Krishna consciousness to strangers. We're trying to give Krishna consciousness to our family members. We're trying to remind our sleeping family members of who they really are, so that they can also join Krishna's eternal family. So then, that helps us to connect with them and develop that compassion, because we feel like they're part of our own family. So obviously we want to do what we can to help them, to remind them who they are. And then this point about that he was a well-wisher for all of them. Again, this point we can relate it to devotees, how devotees are considered well-wishers for everyone. And this reminds me of a very nice point. I didn't get time to add this to the slides, but I'm sure many of us are familiar with the Shrad Goswami Ashtakam, the 8 verses glorifying the 6 Goswamis. And in, I believe it's the second verse, I may be wrong. As I said, I didn't get around to adding it here, but I think it was the second verse. Anyway, it says somewhere in the Shrad Goswami Ashtakam that the 6 Goswamis, they were equally dear, you could say, to the devotees and the ruffians, it says in the translation. So basically the devotees and also the impious, sinful people, the 6 Goswamis were dear to all of them. So again, we can understand, it makes sense the 6 Goswamis would be dear to the devotees and the pious people, but their good qualities were so obvious, they were so evident, and they were so charming and so attractive that even the sinful people, seeing the 6 Goswamis, seeing these great devotees of Lord Chaitanya, they were thinking, wow, they're so amazing. So even the sinful people were appreciating them. And why is that? Because maybe they may not have even known, really why, because they're such simple people. Why would they be appreciating them? But even on a subconscious level, they would understand that the 6 Goswamis, they have no envy, they have no pride. So, when they're seeing the 6 Goswamis, I think they can sense, even if just subconsciously, that this person has no ill motives towards me. They only want what is in my best interest. You can get that sense, this person, they have real compassion in their heart for me, and they feel no envy towards me. So therefore, they'll feel that attraction and they'll feel comfortable in their association. And this is similar, very similar to Srila Prabhupada as well. Even when Srila Prabhupada had to chastise people, either the devotees or members of the public, he would do it, but they wouldn't feel bad about it afterwards. They would actually feel good about it, because again, even if Srila Prabhupada chastised the person, they understood this person has no envy towards me. They're not doing this out of ego. They're doing it out of compassion for me. They want what's best for me, so that's why they're telling me this for my own good. So again, even if they only understood this on a subconscious level, they got that sense of Srila Prabhupada. So they would react to his chastisement or his correction, you could say, positively. And they'll be like, actually, yeah, you know what, Srila Prabhupada, you're right. So in that way, Srila Prabhupada was well loved, by everyone who came across him. Everyone who had some kind of association with him left, feeling positive about that experience, even if Srila Prabhupada had to chastise them. And, like some examples I'm sure we've heard, like sometimes he's giving a lecture, someone will stand up and shout, "No, I am God." And then Srila Prabhupada will stop and look at them and say, "No, you are dog." And usually obviously you would imagine someone would be very offended by this. But no, they would take it positively. They would take it in the way it's meant to be received. Srila Prabhupada is doing it to awaken them to real knowledge, and they could understand that. So that's why Srila Prabhupada is the ever well-wisher of everyone. And similarly, this example of the 6 Goswamis, they were the well-wishers of everyone, ultimately because they're devotees. So this is, that's why I wanted to say that only devotees can really, truly be well-wishers of everyone. If you're not a devotee, you may, be a well-wisher of some people, maybe your close family, maybe your friends, maybe your town, your city, your society, your country, whatever it might be. But unless you're a devotee, you can't possibly have that compassion for everyone, because you're seeing in terms of me and mine, whether it's just me and my family, or me and my friends, me and my local community, me and my society, etc. But we're still thinking in terms of me and mine. But only the devotee is not thinking like that, because they're seeing everyone as part and parcel of Krishna, everyone as a servant of Krishna, and ultimately everyone as a devotee of Krishna. So because they're seeing it like that, then they can actually have that real compassion for everyone, be a well-wisher for everyone, genuinely, not just artificially. They truly feel that in their heart for everyone. Okay, so we can see, because of this nature of Vidura, and that he's a devotee and therefore a well-wisher of everyone, that is ultimately why everyone, because we know not all that all the members of the family were so had such a treated Vidura. I mean, we know many members of the family didn't treat Vidura very well, and it didn't seem like he was dear to them. But now, after he's returned after such a long time, then it's explaining that it doesn't say specifically those who supported the Pandavas, those who are on one side, they're happy, and Dhritarashtra and others, they're not happy. No, it's just saying everyone is happy. It doesn't matter which side they were on during the battle. So that's how well loved he is. Okay, so this point about continuing this theme of separation from devotees, this is a very perfect verse regarding this. And this is found in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 8, text 248. So chapter 8, as we know, is the conversation between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Rai. So in this verse, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's asking, Dukkha madhye kona dukkha, haya guru tar. And Ramananda Rai is replying, Krishna bhakta viraha vina dukkha nahi deki par. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had asked, of all kinds of distress, what is the most painful? And Sri Ramananda Rai replies, apart from separation from the devotee of Krishna, I know of no unbearable happiness. So this is making it even clearer why that separation from Vidura, from a devotee, was so painful for everyone. So the Lord is asking all kinds of distress. There's so many different distresses. This world is full of distress. But out of all those things, what is the most painful? And Ramananda Rai is saying he knows of no unbearable happiness apart from devotee of Krishna. So there's so many different kinds of unhappiness, but he's implying that those things are somewhat bearable. They're not unbearable. So we can somehow or other manage to tolerate them. But this one thing of separation from a devotee is intolerable. He's saying, no, I simply cannot bear it. And so if we look at it the other way, he's saying that that I must have the association of devotees. I can't live without the association of devotees. So that is in turn telling us how important devotee association is. That this is a pure devotee saying that I can't live without the association of devotees. So like we hear, we as devotees, obviously we hear the importance of association with devotees. We're always told, make sure you have to associate with devotees. If you want to advance in spiritual life, you have to associate with devotees. If you want to get purified, you have to associate with devotees. So we hear it all the time, and maybe the mind might kind of tell us that, okay, so this is kind of like a process or a means. We need devotee association as a means to become a pure devotee, to reach, pure love. But then, maybe then afterwards we don't need devotee association. Maybe it's just to help us get to that point. And then, then our mind might tell us, okay, we've reached the perfection. Now we don't need devotee association. But here it's making clear, even a pure devotee, they have no further to go, but still, they can't live without devotee association. So it's not just a means to an end. Devotee association is also a goal. It also is the end itself. So we see this as well in the Bhagavatam when devotees pray to the Lord. Like Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, various devotees, and if the Lord asks them, please ask something from me, and they're praying to the Lord that, no, I don't want anything from you, but if you want to give me anything, please allow me to be in every lifetime. Please allow me to be born in. Please allow me to be born into the association of devotees, or please allow me to have the association of devotees lifetime after lifetime. Wherever I am. That's what they're asking. So for them, association with devotees is the goal. Obviously, the goal is Krishna Prem, to serve Krishna. But another goal is to always be in the association of devotees. So then, further to this point, got another verse here. So I'm sure we're also very familiar with Jayanilo Premadana bhajan from Srila Narottam Das Thakur, very famous bhajan. And as we know, we will sing this bhajan after a devotee leaves. So basically, after devotee leaves our association, we sing this song, and this song is Srila Narottam Das Thakur lamenting that he no longer has the association of all those devotees that he previously was fortunate enough to have the association. They've all left, they've all gone back to Godhead, and he is feeling this intense separation from those devotees. So that is the mood that he's expressing in this bhajan. So this whole bhajan is about this topic of separation from devotees. So that's why I included this. And specifically the last verse of the bhajan, verse 5, Se sabha sangira sange je koilo bilas, se sanga na paya kande narottama das. So it's saying that being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all of these devotees in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottam Das simply weeps. So he's lamenting that he wasn't able to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, of Lord Chaitanya. And I mean, that part is because he even kind of says this, that he was born too late. He was just born a little too late to actually associate with Lord Chaitanya. I mean, there's slightly varying accounts in different scriptures, but either when he was very, very young, Lord Chaitanya returned back to the spiritual world, returned back to his abode, or just before Narottam Das Thakur was born. But either way, very early on, the Lord left. So Narottam Das Thakur was never able to obtain the association, at least in that way. He was able to associate with the Lord, because the Lord is still present in an unmanifest way, but at least in his manifest form, Narottam Das Thakur, he laments that I was born too late to obtain that association. But then, okay, so he did at least manage to get the association of many of Lord Chaitanya's devotees, his associates. Again, he got to, by the time he reached Vrindavan, Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami had also returned back to the spiritual world. So he also lamented that he missed out on the association of Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, but at least, he got the association of Jiva Goswami and so many other amazing devotees. But now, because over time, they all eventually, gradually went back to join the Lord in his supreme abode, and Narottam Das Thakur remained up to a very elderly age. And towards the end, he's just absorbed, intensely absorbed in separation from those devotees. Just like we hear like we hear in the Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Doya Koramore. Last verse also, Narottam Das Thakur says, how is it? Ramachandra Sangamage Narottama Das. So another one of Narottam Das Thakur's closest associates, Ramachandra Kaviraj, he's explained Narottam Das Thakur and Ramachandra Kaviraj were inseparable. They were always together. So even he is now gone. So he's missing him as well. So, and we can see this basically what I'm trying to say, that in so many bhajans from the acharyas, we see this mood of separation from devotees. And it's similar to what we heard, like all the relatives, they felt as if they had no life without Vidura. And similarly, Narottam Das Thakur is feeling that he has no life without these devotees. So then we have, like he says, Kande. Kande means, crying. So you may have also heard this. Many of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's bhajan he'll be saying, Kandia, Kandia, like that he's weeping. Okay, so that I believe is the last slide. But just before I finish, so I just wanted to also just give my personal experience of this topic, which is very, very little, but at least give something so that it's a bit kind of more relatable, I guess. Because this is like we're talking like a high topic of pure devotees feeling separation from other pure devotees or other great devotees. But what about us? So we can also experience, I mean, many of us probably have already actually, but yeah, we can also experience that. Even if we're not pure devotees, we can experience these strong feelings of separation from devotees. So I just wanted to, give my own experience of this. So, so one example, I've got a couple of examples. So one example is of Mother Kalangana. So just to explain this point. So I was previously staying in the ashram at Bhaktivedanta Mana, and as many of us probably know, Mother Kalangana, when she was with us, she was also staying at Bhaktivedanta Mana for many, many years, many decades. But then, towards the end, obviously, she fell ill, and by the time I came to Bhaktivedanta Mana, she was already ill, and she was already kind of in her own sort of room, and she was kind of separated. So I never actually saw her. I've never actually seen Mother Kalangana at all. But when she left us, when she went back to Godhead, there was a ceremony. We had a ceremony in the Goshala, actually, in one of the barns in the Goshala at the Mana. They had the body there, and there was kirtan going on, and then they give petals to all the devotees, and the devotees would circumambulate the body and leave the petals there, and so paying their last respects basically. And as I said, I've never met Mother Kalangana at all. I don't know her, but I was standing there and I was crying as if I lost a family member. And so that was the first time I experienced something like that. And I was wondering, why is this happening? I didn't even know her. Why am I feeling it so strongly? And then I happened to be in India, in Mayapur, when the ashes of Mother Kalangana were put into the river Ganga. And again, I felt really strongly, I felt really emotionally connected at that time as well, even though I never met her. And that's when I first experienced this thing that separation from devotees is nothing like separation from those we have a material relationship with. We can feel separation from devotees even if we barely know them, because it's kind of this point that we've already discussed in this class about how devotees, especially pure devotees, they're dear to everyone. They're dear to everyone because they're the well-wishers of everyone, because they have love and compassion for everyone. So that is, I guess, that is why we can feel strongly that separation from those devotees. And then another example would be the previous temple president here at Bhaktivedanta Mana, His Grace Shruti Dharma Prabhu. Again, I didn't know him very well, and when I moved into the Mana, I only had a few kind of interactions before he also fell ill, and then everything changed. I had very few interactions with him, just a few words exchanged, two or three different occasions, and that was it. And then again, same thing when he left. It was very, very, it was painful. It was a painful experience for me, even though I barely knew him. So then again, it showed me again, okay, this is not like, it wasn't just like a one-off thing. This is actually an actual thing, that we actually can feel strong feelings of separation from devotees. And actually, I'm mentioning this because we're also going to have a memorial program this Friday for Shruti Dharma Prabhu. So that's why he's kind of on my mind at the moment. And the Mana devotees kindly asked me to organize this program as well. So I've just been, inviting devotees to speak about Shruti Dharma Prabhu for this Friday. So that's why I've been thinking about that. And it's interesting because basically someone from the Mana, messaged me to say, would you like to do this service? And the day before that service, before I even knew about this program, I was actually just thinking about Shruti Dharma Prabhu. I just happened to be thinking, and I was just wondering to myself that how is it that person that I barely knew can be so dear to me? I was just contemplating this, and literally the next day, by Krishna's arrangement, I get this service. So okay, so that's just one more. So that's two examples of this. Just one more is Pankajangri Prabhu. So again, I'm sure we all know about Pankajangri Prabhu, but if anyone doesn't, then his brother Jananivas Prabhu is still there in Mayapur, but it was the two of them, the two brothers, Pankajangri Prabhu, Jananivas Prabhu, for many decades. Actually, they were the first to worship Lord Nrsimhadev at Mayapur, and for so many decades they've been worshipping him. And every 5 years they would come, or usually at least Pankajangri Prabhu would come every 5 years. And the very last time that he came, I was still staying in the ashram, and I got the opportunity, the service, to kind of arrange his schedule, help arrange programs for him, things like that. Just a little service. And he was staying for a little while. He was staying with us in the ashram at the Mana. So it got to serve him a little bit, but he was very busy going to various programs, so I didn't get, even though I was serving him, I didn't get to a huge amount of get so much association with him. But again, it was a very painful experience when he left. So that's that. I guess you could say it's more understandable. The person a little, the devotee a little bit. You've done some service for them. Then that connection, there's a tangible connection. There's a connection is there. But as I said, even if you seem to have no connection with them, you can still have that strong connection, because another point here is that connection with devotees is not a material thing. You know, it transcends all material considerations, even space and time. That, you know, we know they're not gone. They may have left the earth, but they're still there wherever they are in the spiritual world. You know, they're still around, they're still there. We can connect with them. We can even, so these are kind of devotees in our more recent kind of times. Another example actually obviously comes to mind, you know, very apt example of His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj. Actually, yeah, I'll just mention that. I know I said only 3 examples, but this is obviously a good example as well. That so my family is kind of connected to, well, my family is connected to Bhakti Charu Maharaj in the sense my father is a disciple of Bhakti Charu Maharaj, so that connection is there. And for many years, I've known devotees who are disciples of Bhakti Charu Maharaj, so I've kind of been, in that way, connected to the community of disciples. But I never really had any direct association with Maharaj himself. I've never spoken to Maharaj. I never actually met him. I've seen him speak a few times, but I never actually had personal association. So, again, you could say I didn't directly have any relationship with him, even though my father does. But I remember I was still at the manor at that time, and I was in the prasadam room, and one devotee came into the prasadam room to announce to everyone that, you know, Bhakti Charu Maharaj had just left his body. And as I said, I didn't think at least that I had any connection with him. So anyway, I'd finished breakfast. I went out of there, and then there's like a pantry. There's like another room where we go to wash our dishes after breakfast or whatever at the manor. But then again, as soon as I left the prasadam room, I went in the other room, and then I started crying. And then I didn't know, and then again I didn't understand why I was crying, because I didn't have any connection with him. But yeah, so this basically these connections with pure devotees, it transcends everything. And one final thing before I ask, you know, if anyone wants to add any comments or questions. As I said, these are kind of recent examples, but we can also connect with older examples, in the sense like we talked about Narottam Das Thakur. So even devotees back in that time, we can connect with them as well in the same way. You know, the associates of Lord Chaitanya, we can connect with them in the same way, as if they are still here with us, as if they are still, you know, living, breathing personalities, and who are actually part of our lives. They're not just, I don't know if I mentioned this previous class, but yeah, they're not just like historical figures in a book, you know, like you have facts and figures about, you know, historical personalities, you know, just a list of names and dates in a book, and that's it. But, you know, that was then, and that's it. No, we can actually connect with them. So, like, for example, for me, I feel a connection with Narottam Das Thakur, because my focus in devotional service is kirtan and bhajans and things like that. So I've always felt connected, and I've always been singing his bhajans. So then also I then had an interest in him through that, and then I decided to find out more and read about his pastimes and like that. And in that way, we hear about the devotees, and then we can actually feel some real connection with those devotees, an actual emotional connection, like actually in the heart. And we can feel like I'm actually starting to get to know this person. And yeah, like I said, develop a relationship with them as if they're actually still here. And we can actually, you know, they're actually part of our lives. So if we hear about even devotees who are no longer around, if we hear about them, we can connect with them. And not just devotees, obviously, with the same goes to the Lord as well. So especially his Gaurapunim tomorrow. So yeah, we can also hear about Lord Chaitanya and his devotees at this special time, and connect with him and develop further our relationship with him. Again, you know, he's not physically present in one sense, but he is still very much present in another sense as well. And we can also feel him like a active part of our lives. So yeah, anyway, I'll end there. So yeah, thank you so much to ISKCON Elderate community for giving me this opportunity to give class. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for this wonderful class. First of all, I'd like to apologize. You were ambushed at the last minute, and then the verse given to you was even wrong. And then at the last minute we changed, and I take total responsibility, Prabhuji, because there was I had taken over, and I oversaw a lot of other things. So I really apologize, but I'm so grateful that these 3 verses were given to you, because you really did justice, and I'm sure, like me, everybody else felt that. And while you were talking of your realizations, I was even imagining, I mean, would it be, you haven't met Mother Kulangna, you haven't met the other devotees that you spoke of, or the Narottam Das Thakur, but you heard about them. So maybe hearing is so important in our sampradaya. So maybe that reiterated the point that hearing is so important. But then I further even dug up, whom have I heard of? So I'm a scientist, so I've heard about Newton, I've heard about Einstein, but you don't get that connection. So, I mean, there are lots of Nobel Prize winners that I've even met and heard about, but you don't connect. So this connection with devotees, with pure devotees, as you described, is transcendental. And now I understand what you said, because and what was fantastic was that you can even connect to people in the spiritual world by thinking about them, by hearing about them, and then thinking about them. So thank you, Prabhuji, for this wonderful class. Are there any other questions or comments? Yes, Panchali Mataji, kindly unmute.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the wonderful class. Apologies, I was only able to join a bit late, so apologies for that.
Okay.
Just continuing on what Kritika Mataji just mentioned about connection and your wonderful teachings around that. And I was just remembering about Janki Das Prabhu.
Oh yeah.
And well, most of the time I do service at London, rather Londoneshwara, but sometimes I also do service at the manor. So I did hear about Janki Das Prabhu quite a lot. And the year before he left his body, he did an online class because it was still COVID time. So he did an online class on Balram Jayanti on the occasion. And that was the first time I saw him online, and that was the first time and only time I saw him. And then obviously I heard from other devotees about him, but similarly, as you said, when he left his body, for some reason it brought tears to my eyes, although despite the fact that I had never ever actually seen him in person, and the only time I've actually seen him was on the screen. And yet, when, as you rightly said, when it's a pure devotee, somehow the material or the bodily connection or seeing somebody in person, all of that transcends into just a connection with the soul, and that is what keeps us or helps us in remembering great souls even after they leave their material body. So thank you very much for once again making us feel that connection with great souls. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much, Mataji. I can't believe I completely forgot to mention Janki Das Prabhu as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Panchali Mataji, for that question. Are you going, Prabhu? Kindly unmute and
Hare
Ask your
Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, just wanted to a wonderful presentation of the subject. I mean, very nice subject of separation of devotees. You just highlighted the core point of separation of devotees, which was in the verses. And just would like to mention Prabhupada's pastimes with his devotees.
Okay.
Actually, when Prabhupada was leaving his body, I mean, when he was disappearing from this world, the devotees were really, kind of surrounded him, and then, they were really literally crying, and then didn't know what to do next. That was the emotion. Like they were more than a family member, and then this emotion. What you are saying, it was displayed by them, and then they were really think. I mean. Did not think that like how they will manage this whole entire devotee. I mean, he has created devotees. He has created the entire world of devotees. So this was shown practically by them, and also once Prabhupada was mentioning about his Guru Maharaj, he became emotional, and then he said, "My Guru Maharaj has sent all of you to me. So you're all helping me, and then my Guru Maharaj has sent me. Please carry on with this." Like that, he became emotional for a moment. That we could see in his lectures. So this two things I wanted to share, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Hare Govind Prabhu, for that contribution. Any other questions or comments? There are no questions or comments. I know we have exhausted our time. I'll request Hare Govind Prabhu. Is it possible, Prabhu, for you to kindly end this session, Hare Krishna, and wish everybody a very nice Gaur Purnima, a transcendental Gaur Purnima.
Thank you,
Tomorrow.
Mataji. The mercy is flowing already before the start of the day. Yes. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for this wonderful class. And then we are really sorry about this mishap about the verses, and then also last minute changes on the verses. Although, I mean, you took that, and then you presented it very nicely about the separation of devotees, and then Vidura coming back to Kurukshetra, and then he was received by his relatives, although he like a soul is separated from the body, like that. And you explained very well, and then you gave examples of different devotees, and then also you gave some personal examples, which was very touching, and then very we can also, I mean, quote many examples, but the time is limited. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. I request all the devotees to unmute and chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra in glorification as Grace Nikhil Gohil Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare
Hare
Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare Hare. Vancha
Kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyo cha patitanam
Anam
pavanebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Prabhupada ki jai,
Hare Krishna, Hare Govind.
Prabhu ki jai.
Hare Hare.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.